All right, welcome everyone. We have a great presentation today. Really looking forward to this one, presented by Nate Kipnis, Kipnis Architecture, the AIA 2030 commitment and beyond. It's really important at this time when we talk about green building, setting carbon goals and how we achieve those. So I think it should be a really good one. In general, I just want to thank all of our sponsors. The sponsors are basically what makes us able to produce great quality content and hopefully continue to, put on awesome events, more social events, the Green Home Tour, all those great things that we all love. So Alpin, City of Boulder, 475, Hammerwell, Cottonwood, Boulder County, just thank you so much. If you haven't been around, or if you have, you can always check out our recent brown bag events on our website or the YouTube channel. Go check it out. Lots of really cool content. You can kind of catch up or, just get educated about the different topics we've been talking about. We also have been hosting, besides the brown bags like this one, also been doing the How I Green Built This. So we'll talk to people in the industry or in our community, kind of talk about like the state of the industry, their story. It's really fun to just kind of like get to know people, learn about how, the struggles and tribulations they've been through and, just kind of overcoming and where you got to and where we are now. And it's just fun conversation. We're also going to be starting to host these happy hours. And we have a different platform for that. I think it's a really great opportunity because you can kind of move yourself around into different conversations. You're not all kind of stuck in one large conversation. So you can have little side conversations, drag your little bubble around to whoever you want to talk to, butt into those conversations. A little less awkward than just walking up to a circle at a networking event too. So please join us, get some face time, get to know everyone. I know everyone wants to get more networking in. Hopefully we can do it in person again sometime this year, but in the meantime, come join us. The next one, we're really going to be talking about advocacy, especially how it relates to the guild, and if that's a direction we want to go in as a guild, if that's something that we can, a service that we can help with the community to help be more connected to municipalities. So if you're interested in that, come join us. Check out the website. The calendar's up. You can see everything that's upcoming. If you have events that you'd like to put on the calendar, let us know. Our next How I Green Built This is with Jason Merkel and Justin Blaze. They'll be talking kind of about the state of construction, especially on the larger scale. So it should be interesting. The construction industry, as most of you know, is a little bit crazy right now. Materials, lead times, all of it. So it should be interesting to kind of see where people stand. And then, of course, if you aren't already, please follow us, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, subscribe to our email list, stay connected. We're trying to just be a resource for you all. The board's all volunteer, but I think it's a really great resource. We all want to be connected with you. Hopefully you want to be connected with us too. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Nate Kipnis. So let's see here. Nate, hang tight. So Nate, fellow of AIA, principal of Kipnis Architecture, recently named Best Chicago Residential Architect by Better Magazine, also awarded Illinois Green Alliance's Emerald Award, founding member of Citizens Greener Evanston, the chair of CGE's Energy Task Force. He was the motivating force for Evanston's conceptual offshore wind farm in Lake Michigan. Nate was a founding member of AIA's 2030 Commitment Working Group in 2009 and served as the national co-chair from 2018 to 2019. He's continuing to serve at the national AIA board level on the newly formed Committee on Climate Action and Design Excellence. Nate Kipnis is a founder of Next House Alliance, a new premium design build concept to provide net zero, sustainable, resilient, and healthy homes. He attended CU Boulder and received an environmental design degree in 1983, obtained his Master's of Architecture at Arizona State University with an emphasis in energy conscious design. Nate the Skate with a semi-professional skateboarder a long time ago, but continues to skateboard, snowboard, ski, and surf when the opportunity presents itself. So Nate, I'm sure I caught everything there, but I'll let you take it from here. And thank you so much. And thanks everyone for attending.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Frank. If you turn the screen so I can share that, that'd be great. And just let me know if it's not working, but hopefully it is. So I would like to talk today about the 2030 commitment and why it's so important, and hopefully to get people motivated to join. And it's really a great, simple program that is going to make a big impact on the world and on your work. So starting with climate change and the role that an architect plays in that, there was a report a few years ago from the IPCC about climate change, and it's a pretty heavy duty report. There is a executive summary that's about 20 pages long. I would strongly recommend taking a look at least that executive summary, that we need to limit global temperature change to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and we need to do that starting immediately. So really important to get on the ball on that. And buildings, of course, have a giant part of the problem. So we're about 40% of the greenhouse gases when you look at the building operations, as well as the materials and the embodied energy that goes into the materials and the construction of buildings. So when you hear different amounts all the time, when I hear people on TV talking about this, they're like, oh, cars are the big thing, or industry. Really, it's buildings, period. And I think the new thing that's coming is the embodied carbon, that's going to be the biggest thing. We're getting very good at making the buildings operate really efficiently, but now we need to start to also think about the materials and how they're constructed. And so, as this says, building operations are responsible for about 30% globally of the greenhouse gases, but in some cities it's 70%. I know here in Evanston, Illinois, that's the case as well, that it's primarily the buildings. And what's great about this from an architect standpoint is that the design strategies that an architect can implement are about half of the issue. And so it's not like we're just specifying mechanical systems or something like that, or energy efficient components. It's how we design the buildings. So keeping them small, or orienting them the right way, or thinking about how the windows are located, and obviously how tight it's detailed, how well it's insulated, and all of those things have a huge impact on this. So it really elevates the architectural profession to be at the forefront of this. We're the ones that can really have the big impact. And if we look at the timeline, Ed Mazzaria from Architecture 2030, he started the 2030 challenge in 2006, and the AIA accepted that and started the 2030 commitment in 2009. Actually, I think we started in 2008, but we really started the program in 2009. And in 2019 at the National Convention, they had a vote, should the 2030 commitment, or actually, it was, should there be a call for urgent and sustained climate action? And it was passed overwhelmingly, something like 93% were in favor of it, which leads me to wonder who these 7% were that weren't for it. And we've seen that statistic before, the 93%, just in general, if architects understand climate change. So we're a very progressive community from that standpoint. And so it was accepted, and the AIA at the national level is totally in on this. And so it's the goal now is to get as many firms on board and to help them to accomplish this. And that's primarily what I want to show you moving forward here. You know, basically, we're going to be doubling the building stock in a not too long of a time frame. And therefore, everything moving forward really needs to be done. Anything new in particular, anything renovated, We're going to have 2.5 trillion gross square feet of new construction by 2060. I think I had heard this statistic that it's something like a new New York City every month or every week, some crazy number like that. And we really have to take that opportunity to make everything be as efficient as possible now, starting now. And the renovation work that's going to imply is unbelievable. So 113 million existing buildings in the US, half of which will need a retrofit in the next decade. And so if you take all 20,000 architecture firms, that's 250 built or more buildings annually for every firm. So, I mean, there's so much work to be done. And there's an opportunity, obviously, for our industry to do amazing stuff. And that's going to be with new and existing buildings. So how do we do that? What's the 2030 commitment about? And how do you become a signatory? So the idea of this is, the mission of this 2030 commitment is to transform the practice of architecture in a way that is holistic, firm-wide, project-based, and data-driven. And what we're trying to do is be 80% more efficient than the baseline building from 2003. And we want to, so currently, as of 2020, be 80% better than baseline. In 2025, that goes to 90%, and that gets us to 2030 to be carbon neutral. And you can see from this graph that the fossil fuels are what's going to disappear. We're going to do primarily fossil-free buildings with a little bit of off-site renewable energy allowed in there. And that's going to become more and more prevalent moving forward. So I hear a bunch of things about why the 2030 commitment is difficult. And we printed up this 2030 commitment myths, and this is our myth buster. So it takes too much time to do it. So if you're doing a building, either you're a whiz and you do your own energy modeling, or you have a mechanical engineer who's going to help you with that. So once you get your data, it really is a simple task to import this into the design data exchange, the DDX. Typically takes about 30 minutes a project to do that. So it's really not difficult. And once this becomes part of your firm's culture, which is really the idea here, we want it to be part of your thinking through all of the work you're doing. It should not be a big burden to do that. Another myth is it requires too many resources. The program is a free program, and there's personalized mentorship, which is pretty amazing. I just left the National 2030 Commitment Working Group. We were the mentorship, the 14 of us on the committee. I think they're going to expand that because we're getting more and more people on board, but you were able to be mentored by the people at the program, which is really great. Myth number 3, I have poor performing projects in my portfolio. Welcome to the club. We all do. No one has a perfect portfolio. That's not the point. There's no green police. No one's going to revoke your AIA license. And it's all aggregated and anonymous. So you don't need to worry about any green shaming going on, none of that. Just start doing it. And that goes with the next one. I have to achieve the 2030 target. Making progress is much more important than meeting the target, especially initially. There is no firm that is going to join this and hit 80% better than baseline right off the bat. That's just way too intense. What's more important is starting to just start from wherever you are. Don't even worry about it. And then start putting it onto your radar, get everyone up to speed, and make progress every year. Just make forward progress. That's the key thing. And then the last thing is the project must be complete. And really, the 2030 is just a framework to set targets and track that. And you want to do that as early in the design process as possible. And that's really the key to this. So the benefits for being a signatory is you get to be a climate leader. You get to master your data, which is always important in this data-driven world. You can attract clients and retain talent. The younger people coming into the profession are so motivated by this. And if your firm is not on board, they will very likely leave your firm if they're motivated and you're not doing it. So that's a key thing. And then also you'll get recognized. So at the Chicago AIA, we came up with this badging system. So these are annual badges. That first one on the left is red and it expires on Earth Day 2021. And then we move to the bright red one and you keep going till you get to the green one down at 2030. National AIA has a slightly different one, but it would be great if the Colorado AIA came up with their own, however you want to do it, but then you can start promoting this on your website, which is really great. So 2030 signatories are absolutely the leaders in the profession. 7 of the 10 most recent AIA architecture firm award winners are signatories. Every firm since 2014 that's been a COAT Top 10 award winner has become a signatory, and more than 70% of the AIA award-winning projects were designed by 1 or more 2030 signatory firms. So this is the key to high-performing firms. There's actually a document that I'll note at the end of the presentation of high-performing firms, and that these are the habits of them, that they are signatories, that they understand the program and are very involved with it. These are the steps involved with becoming a signatory. There's 5 steps. Step 1 is signing the commitment letter. So we do that. You can do that online. There's a markup of that you can use, or you can customize it however you want. You can draft that letter and sign it and then upload it to the DDX. You open up an account on the DDX and then you're off and running. And then you create a sustainability action plan, which is an SAP, and that gets uploaded to the DDX within the first 6 months of being a signatory. You want to talk about whatever's important to you, your firm commitment, what you think you want to achieve. It could be training, it could be outreach, it could be how your operations are. You know, we want to walk the walk. So are all your lights LED? I mean, that's the simplest thing, of course. But what else are you doing? Are you telecommuting? Do you have bikes? Do you reward employees for mass transit? Things like that. There's examples of the sustainability action plans that are online, so you can see how other firms have done them. Some of them have fancy schmancy covers and staff that do it, and some, like me, we just typed it up and that was it. But you want to do that, and you want to then start looking at your projects. You want to endeavor to design all your projects to meet those targets. Doesn't mean you have to meet them, just start thinking about it. So again, we're at the 80% mark from baseline. If you're doing retail or projects that are primarily, that don't have mechanical system modifications, then you can look at your lighting power density, and you want to get a 20% reduction from baseline. That's really easy with LED lights, but that's another way to do it. I think also you want to internally think about which projects are going to count and which ones don't count. So in our office, anything that's less than 400 square feet, we're not going to bother reporting it. You can decide what makes sense for your office, like what's too small of a project, but the basic parameter that meets a threshold is if it's got mechanical system modifications. That's really one of the key parts to that. So keep that in mind. And then you want to report your projects. So the reporting deadline was March 31st. It's typically March 31st. This year it became April 31st because of COVID. So we're allowing a extension for that. Report all your projects in active design phase during that reporting year. You can have joint projects, and if you do, both firms can report the project. You know, it's at this point, we don't care if there's double counting on a few projects. That's really not the problem or issue. We want to have everyone involved. So we think it's much more important to get firms to go ahead and report if they've both been working on it, and only report interior projects with lighting scope design. So that's sort of what I had mentioned before. And then you want to update your sustainability action plan every 3 years. I think you'll see that every 3 years you have a whole different concept of where you want to be. So update it when you can at that point. So let's talk about the signatories and their impact. We are, I think currently we're probably at about 850 firms, and this gives you a sense of the size of firms that have joined. This was in 2019. So we're way beyond this, but you can see big firms, 100 plus, there's 130 firms. And I would think, if I'm remembering right, there's like these super big firms, 500 or 1,000 or more. They're almost all signed up. Firms at that size have a fiduciary responsibility to some investors potentially to be signatories and to be on board with this. And as we get down into smaller and smaller firms, it's getting tougher and tougher to get them to sign on. But the more noticeable thing is, even if they sign on, look at who's actually submitted. So when you see the large firms, the 130, 106 of them reported. But if you look at the small firms, the 151, only 36 reported. We see a big drop off the smaller the firms get. And so it's really important, the smaller the firm size, to get them to not only sign on and make the commitment, but to actually follow through and report. I think currently we have about a 45% reporting rate, which we really, really need to improve on. And as I mentioned, the big firms, the really big firms, they will sign on and report because very likely they've got an entire principal assigned to this, and they will be in big trouble if they don't follow through. And if you're a small firm, it's easy enough to sign on. You have no one to report to. We're a 5-person firm. I just said we're signing on. I didn't have other principals to discuss. We didn't have to worry about the economics of it. I think it's the firms that are probably 20 to 40, 20 to 50 in size, where there's multiple principals. They don't have the budgets of the really large firms, that is the trickiest size. But we're hoping that size firm really starts signing on and reporting, as well as the small firms. And then this is a new thing that we're really happy to see, that the number of firms meeting the target, the EY target for their entire portfolio, that we had 11 of them in 2017, we had 16 in 2018, and in 2019, which is the current year that we have results, we're going to have the 2020 results very soon. There's 27 firms, and those are listed here. And one of the firms is Colorado Green Builders Guild own Rodwin Architecture. So that's really impressive. Given how intense Boulder's requirements are for net zero homes, I am surprised we're not seeing more, or maybe I should say, I'm hoping to see in 2020, 2021 and moving forward, that we see a lot of Boulder firms on this list. The other thing that's interesting about this list is it's made up primarily of small firms. It's relatively easier, not easy, but easier for a small firm to just say, this is all we're doing. So TBDA is based in Oak Park, Illinois. I know Tom Bassadilli, and they're a passive house firm, and they're also a 5-person firm, and they just do amazing passive house work. Colson is based out of Minnesota. Xero Energy Design is based out of Boston. So I'm always impressed with cold weather firms that can pull this off. And I was mentioning to the guys before we started this, that I'm surprised we don't have a ton of San Diego firms that don't have any issues with temperature. 70 degrees year round, you should be on this list. And hopefully, again, there'll be more and more firms like that on board. LPA is the largest firm that's on this list. I think they're 120 or 140 person firm. Really impressive that they're able to have that entire portfolio meet that. And it doesn't mean every project, it's the average. And so here we can see the map of the US, and this is by state, and you can see the percents in there are the percent reduction of all the architecture firms averaged out. So California is leading because of their codes that are requiring that. And you can see as you get into colder states, that number goes down. You can also, or I also want to point out, there's 2.1 billion square feet that were reported in 2019 in the US. And also in that year, 1.3 billion were reported outside of the US. This is primarily US firms doing international work, but we do have some foreign firms from Canada and elsewhere that are signatories to the 2030 commitment. And this just says in 2019, the 2030 commitment We had savings that equated to 20 million metric tons CO2 equivalent reduction, which is amazing. That's like 4.4 million cars being removed from the road. We had 194 buildings that were net zero, and I'm expecting that number to go way up. I know there's a lot of houses individually, but they're not necessarily signatories. So these are potentially much bigger than just single family homes that are making that happen. And this is a great chart. This is a box and whiskers chart that shows by building type the range that we're seeing in the reported reductions. So the thing that I like to look at, and you can see that dotted vertical line, that's the target in 2019. That's the 70% mark. And that, of course, shifted over. But single family residential is the one that's possibly hitting 100%, way better than any of the other building types. And so I think that's because it's easy enough to focus in on a single building like that. There's a lot of research and data that's helping people do that. But the other takeaway from here is if you look at the top versus the bottom bar in each one of these categories, it's modeled versus not modeled. We want you to energy model because it is clearly the way to become a better high-performing project. So energy modeling, really, really key. And that's what this is saying is, again, in building size, not just building type, every one of them is showing a great increase in that. So energy modeling is really key. And I want to show this. This is an interesting little thing of how energy modeling has changed over time. This was from Keck and Keck. They were an architect in Chicago. They were the ones who coined the term solar home back in 1940. And if you look up in the upper right of the left side page, that's December 21st, the winter solstice on 1940. This was their home, which is what they call solar home number one. They had to do all these calculations by hand. And I hate to admit it, but when I was in school at Boulder, that's how we did this too. And then that changed to being able to use a spreadsheet, which was very helpful. But of course, now the way to do it is with BIM modeling, with all these great programs we have. And so here's 3 options of building types, same building, just different shapes, different locations, different orientations on the site, different location. And you can see it's going from a 23,000 BTUs per square foot on the right one, 24,000 BTUs per square foot on the left one, and the middle one at 25. So this is really important information. And you can see it gives you the output by month, by different building components. And you can present this to the client and go, well, all things being equal, look at this. If we do this corner model, we're going to save X amount of BTUs and carbon and dollars every year if we do it that way. It doesn't mean that that's the one they're going to pick, but it's making informed decisions. And that's really, really important to be able to bring to a meeting like that. And of course, the metric that we use is energy use intensity. So we see things like parking structures that are going to be extremely low energy use to things that are really high, that are going to be things that are have a lot of internal equipment, that are internally dominated with equipment such as medical. So you see the healthcare ones in the 400s, and then restaurants. You see convenience store at 592. Excuse me, restaurant 573, fast food at 886. So that's really kind of the range. You'll see stuff from under 100 to 886. And then of course we've got the cannabis grow lights at 1200. So that's a whole new issue that we're trying to grapple and trying to solve. But that one is the big one in the group. But we need to do way better. So currently, we're at about 49% for our overall portfolio of everyone who submitted. But we've seen a steady increase, but it's not increasing quick enough. And I sort of think part of that is there's a lot of new firms that join that are just entering their lower data. But everyone's making progress. So that's the key thing, like I've said before, is we have to continue to make progress. And We had a great jump last year from 46 to 49, and I'm hoping that that continues as more firms figure this out and there's more good options available. So now we need to think about how to go beyond Xero, and the AIA has come out with this program called the Framework for Design Excellence. So when we've thought about design excellence in the past, we think of pretty buildings. We'll think of just an amazingly great classical building or a really well-designed modern building. Design excellence is not about how it looks anymore. And you're going to see these 10 criteria now put into design competitions and design awards as being the things that they're looking for. And I've given a complete lecture on this. It's it takes a long time to deep dive into this, but basically design for integration, design for equitable communities, that's addressing racial equity issues, design for ecosystems, how the building is impacting the site itself and beyond, design for water, which obviously is water efficiency and wise use of that, design for economy, we always have to wrestle with budgets, design for energy, which is the one that most of us are familiar with, for well-being, which is everything we've heard about this last year with COVID and everything else, design for resources, reusing buildings and things like that, design for change, that's resilient design. That's another huge one that is very big discussion point now, and design for discovery. So these things are all playing out, and we're, for Chicago, we're having the awards. Actually, you need to address these. If you're not a signatory to the 2030 commitment, you need to write a little statement about 3 of these. And every year, this is going to get more and more intense. National design awards are going to need to address all of this. And so you can get information on this at the AIA.org website, the Framework for Design Excellence. So that's that you can go in depth on each one of these. And it's really nice. They have a thing about like, what's the most important single thing if I had to pick one thing in each one of these categories. So trying to think how architects actually think and not be up in our white ivory tower, trying to give as much guidance as we can. And then this came from the COAT Top 10 Super Spreadsheet, which was developed by some members at National. And they broke it into those 10 categories. And this is still a requirement when you enter the Committee on the Environment Top 10 Awards submittal. You need to fill this all out. So what can we learn from lessons from the field? I'm going to give 3 different firms. Lake Flato is the first one. Heather Holdridge is the person in charge of sustainability for Lake Flato. She was my co-chair back in 2018 on the AIA 2030 commitment working group. Real honor to work with her. So their firm is based in Texas. This is probably half of their staff that they currently have. I know they've been growing quite a bit. And they've done work almost in every state now. Really, really impressive work. They have won the most COAT Top 10 awards of any firm in the country. And that is an amazing statement. They start every project with trying to figure out how they're going to win an award on every project. It's really pretty amazing. And they have a checklist that they go through, and Heather's got her hands full trying to make that happen. And they look at what the baseline, what their goal is, and what their actual target that they want to hit. And that's the thing, just because it's at 70 or now it's at 80% doesn't mean that's the limit. Like they might say it's 70, well, now it's 80%, we're going to shoot for 90. And pretty impressive how they work. So they brainstorm all this and they try and figure out what works for the site, what works for the climate. And these are the things that they set up at the beginning of the project. They don't try and reverse engineer a story to make it make sense. And this is just an example of a bunch of their buildings that more than likely, these are their COAT Top 10 award winners. And they have a form that they fill out at the beginning of the project. And they also do post-occupancy to see how they can do better. That's Corey Squire on the right. He's he was a member of he was one of the ones that wrote up the Committee on the Environment Framework, and pretty amazing guy. Now for my firm, as I mentioned, we're a 5-person firm, so I like to show our holiday card that all 5 of us could fit in a little van like that. We do primarily single family homes, but we do a smattering of other work as need be. And this is just some of the projects that we've worked on. The one in the middle top, we're working on up on Sunshine Canyon in Boulder County right now. So that's our first big one that we're doing there. This is showing some smaller projects, some LEED Platinum ones, up to some fairly large single family homes. Whoops, I am going the wrong way here. So our firm, our office is, we have no walls. So that's our firm culture, is everyone knows what's going on with every project. And everyone has got some kind of LEED accreditation or certified passive house. And the one person who doesn't is the one that does our energy modeling. So he probably knows more than any of us on that. And I want to just step you through one project in particular. This is a house that we did on a lake in Lake Zurich, Illinois. And whenever you do a lake project, there's a front off the street and there's a front off the water. So there's really 2 fronts. This house, we had a goal of making it be hitting the 70% mark. We ended up being a little bit better than that. So we were at 71%. And we like to start with a lot of passive techniques. So a lot of natural daylighting, natural ventilation. So at the high point, we have operable skylights. We do this pretty much in every project. We want those operable skylights to help with natural ventilation. We want to get a really tight, well-insulated shell, and we want to get as much PV as we can on board. This house is all electric. That's the way to do it. Electricity is the currency for renewable energy, so we want to reinforce that. If we're bringing in natural gas, which is actually methane, that's not a good thing. So, and I'll explain how we did that with this house. So what we're doing is induction cooktops, air source, water heater, air source, hybrid dryer. And then we're doing air source heat pumps, mini splits for all of our HVAC. So sometimes that's a lot of zones, sometimes just a few, but that's going to be our primary thing. So we don't have the natural gas line coming in, but we have a bigger electric service that's required. And of course, one of the key things you want to do is get those condensers off the ground so they don't get buried in the snow. And then just a really tight shell, and we're doing exterior continuous insulation with furring strips. This on the right is showing boral siding, which is made from waste fly ash. So really a good use of that material. And then in the walls, it depends on what we're doing. If we have the exterior insulation, then we're blowing in fluffy insulation that in this case was blown in rock wool, but on vaulted ceilings, we're using closed cell insulation. And then this is our year-over-year performance chart. And so we've peaked at certain points and then we've plummeted. This is what happens when you have a small firm. And in 2016 and 2017, we had some industrial work that we weren't really well skilled at, and it just dropped our performance way down. But that's fine. It's good to be transparent about this and to understand why it happened, and then to try and do better the following years. So no shame in showing this. We have this on our website, and that's fine. I want to talk about a different size firm. This is Stantec, which is one of the largest firms in the country. And so they've been doing this for a long time. They have work all over the place. They have over 21,000 employees. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to think about this, about the reach that they have. Their sustainability report is going to be a lot more glamorous looking than mine, which is great. I think that's a good thing to do. And this is just wild to look at. You know, they have homing in on, you know, over 850 LEED accredited professionals. They have all these other people on board, you know, 600 LEED certified projects. 34 net zero projects, et cetera, et cetera. Just unbelievably amazing scope of work that they've done. So a couple projects I want to highlight here. This is the NREL research facility in Golden, 360 square foot. And so it's a LEED Platinum, LEED Zero building. And the EUI number is 35,000 BTUs per square foot per year. And I'm not sure what the baseline is for a research thing, but it's probably in the 200s for a normal building. And that's, I assume most of you have seen this. So the parking structure is loaded with solar panels, which I think is a really smart move. Lots and lots of chargers. This is a building in Colorado Department of Transportation headquarters in Denver. Their site EUI is 21,000 BTUs per square foot per year. The roof is loaded with solar panels, and they achieved a LEED Gold certification on this building. So I also want to show you some resources, and I can share this with you, but I do want to point out a bunch of these. So the Design Data Exchange, you're going to find that at the AIA.org, AIA2030.org site. The AIA 2030 roundtables at local chapters. I would highly encourage you to pressure the AIA Colorado to get a dedicated 2030 commitment roundtable going. And even if they don't do it, I think just locally you should be able to do that. And I think it really is important to be able to share problems and try and problem solve it together. The AIA framework for design excellence that I mentioned, you can look up all the information on that. The AIA Plus 2030 AIA University Certificate Series. So there's a whole bunch of learning opportunities that are kind of 1-hour presentations. I have one from a long time ago, back when the DDX was a spreadsheet. But in 1 hour, I gave a presentation on about 10 minutes of what the program was. I used a program called HEED, which is a free program, and I did energy modeling of a building, of a house, and then I did 7 iterations to show how I could get it down, got it to net zero all within 50 minutes, and then took questions. And I had never been able to do that while I was practicing, so I was pretty pleased with that. The AIA's Guide to Building Performance, which was just a year or two ago, still very current. Leveraging energy transparency, also relatively current. Blueprint for Better website. I would definitely look at that, and I would bookmark that, go back to that. That's got current stuff. It's being updated all the time. That is one of the best things you could possibly do. And then there's this whole series of the Xero tool, which is by Architecture 2030. They also have in that Architecture 2030 a carbon, I don't know if I'd say neutral, it's a low carbon material palette series of pages on their website. Really good to look at that. Target Finder for EPA, that's if you're doing larger buildings and you need to come up with an EUI that might not be able to be cherry picked from the preset ones. Procedures for commercial energy, for commercial building energy audits by ASHRAE, Getting to Zero database by New Buildings Institute, and an EUI analyzer by Slipstream. There's, as I mentioned, the AIAU, which is the AIA University education. There's lots of stuff on 2030 in there. Highly recommend looking at that. Really, really great stuff there. And you can probably get a package deal if you want to watch these. Like if you set up that roundtable, you could probably work out a deal with the AIA on that. Can't promise that. The AIA's Guide to Building Performance. This is an update from their Energy Architect's Guide to Energy Use that was probably 10 years old. So this has been updated and it is really good. And it has stuff for small firms, medium and large firms. So really an excellent reference for you to have. Free download. And then of course, the 2030 by the Numbers annual report. This was always, I mean, as part of the committee, this was a lot of work to get this done, and it's really impactful. So a lot of those charts you saw came from that from those. And you can download them over the years, but obviously get the most current one. And then the last thing I'm going to leave you with, at least I think this is the last thing, is the local components. So like I said, it would be really great if AIA Colorado really got up on this to do this. And I know they're interested. I've talked to some of the people there. They're very motivated to get it started. So if you guys want to volunteer and do that, that would be really good. But what I'm showing here on the left is Philadelphia, which is, I think, the best in the country right now. They have got an amazing lecture series that has been recorded, and they just deep dive into it. I'm just so impressed with what they do. Chicago's got a really great one going, AIA Pittsburgh. I think this is really helpful. You know, AIA National can do a lot, and they do a lot, but it gets more connected at the local level. So I think it's a great next step to do that. And so again, for more info, go to aia.org 2030 commitment, and they'll be very helpful if you have any questions. So that's it. And maybe there's some questions I can answer. And I just encourage everyone to sign on. There's no downside to signing on to this. And then I want you, if you do that, to follow through and start committing, get the firm culture engaged, and it'll be great for you. It'll be great for your clients, and of course, great for the planet. And that's it.
Thanks, Nate. And thanks everybody for joining. Can you hear me as well?
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, Cole, before we open it up for questions, we just want to do our typical raffle, and we'd like to highlight a local restaurant. So we're going to do Under the Sun, and drum roll, our winner of the raffle this time for a $50 gift certificate to Under the Sun is Kristen Weedo from Kipnis Architecture. So congratulations, Kristen. We'll send you a gift certificate by email. And then I think based on how many participants we have, we're just going to allow everybody to kind of open it up, unmute themselves, and feel free to unmute their or turn on their cameras and ask Nate any questions you might have. And I can kind of kick it off because I had a question. I didn't hear you mention anything about embodied energy. Is that kind of part of the commitment as well?
It is starting to become more and more important. It's a big target. So I believe the DDX is allowing you to start entering that into your reporting. So I think, you know, as part of that, the DDX should be looked at as your own portfolio. And you can reference that and go, what did I do for that project? And did it have any carbon savings? You can input that, and you can put notes about that, and you can go back and reference it. So that is going to become more and more important. The DDX is going to reflect that. It's just starting right now. So it's not front and center, but it is definitely coming up there.
Does anybody else have any questions? Or is everybody able to unmute themselves? Because I seem to be the only person. I see Megan and Henry, but you're both muted.
Hi, Megan.
Hi, everybody. Great stuff, Nate.
Thanks.
Nate, I have a question, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
As a builder, what would you recommend for me to like what's my best way to approach architects in a way that they're going to receive it positively for me to like nudge them to potentially join your cause?
Wow, that is a great question. Because I think in your question, it's understood that it's usually coming from the architect the other way. So if you have a non-responsive architect, you might want to give them a little hint that everything is going to go all electric. Everything is going to start going, you know, carbon counting, energy use intensity counting, and that, you know, hey, I got your plans, but I think it'd be good for your business to be doing this for your future projects. And you can also tell them as a builder, you know, maybe you're not doing it now, but I would highly recommend, let's at least pre-wire this house for solar panels, battery backup, and electric car charging with, you know, $400 a conduit. Although $400 a conduit last week is probably $3,000 now. I'm getting kind of tired of looking at those charts, but anyway, that's like an easy thing. As a builder, you could almost sneak those in, but you should like educate a non-responsive architect about at least that. And then as a builder, you probably go to more hands-on events about how to make buildings airtight, air sealing them, detailing them. So you might say, hey, do you want me in the bid to give you an alternate for really tight penetrations through the buildings, through the building shell, or something like that. I'm just trying to think like easy discussion things, like not to like rip them that they don't know what they're doing with their insulation or something. I mean, you could tell them that too, but I don't know. Some might not want to take that, but those other ones are really easy. So baby steps, but quick. We got no time to waste here.
Yeah, thank you.
Nate, have you put any green roofs on your houses? That seems to be something that is happening a lot more in custom homes here in Colorado, especially since we changed. In Denver, it's required to have quite a bit of green roof on commercial buildings. So is that something?
Yeah. So in Chicago has the most green roofs of any city. I'm not necessarily a big fan. I know, like, for example, the Sears building, which is now the Willis building, 110 stories, they put a green roof on. So if you think about that, the green roof impact versus the floor area below it, there's nothing. And so it only really makes sense for 1-story, 2-story buildings. And there's a lot of other things you can do. I mean, it's a great thing. I think in a city, it makes a lot of sense because you want to minimize the greenhouse impact, you know, on that microclimate, kind of the solar impact of that, the thermal, what am I missing here? The hot roof. But I'm not such a big fan. We've done it on a couple homes. It's more decorative than anything else. No harm in doing it. It's just a cost thing. And, you know, these days, I think people are needing to prioritize their costs really carefully. The one house that we did it on that was really neat was we put it on a 1-story part of a 2-story building and had a 3-sided courtyard around it. So you saw that every day. So it wasn't just some abstract thing on a roof. You got to enjoy it every day. But I think just putting it on a roof and never seeing it, except on Google Maps, is really kind of questionable. I mean, I understand the benefits. It's as good as adding insulation. It reduces the impact of UV on the roofing material and things like that, stores stormwater. There's definitely some good things, but a lot of that can be done easier with other techniques. Hopefully there's not like a green roof specialist on the call here.
I don't think he joined in on this one,
Okay.
but he's a member of the guild.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
Before I ask any more questions, does anybody else have some questions? I'll keep asking. One of the things that I've noticed, so I'm a structural engineer, but not an architect, but I notice in a lot of the buildings that I work on, especially here in Colorado, we have a lot of in-floor heat. And I heard that you mentioned electrical is the way to go, but all of the ones that I've seen here pretty much are off of boilers. So I'm wondering if that's electric or probably mostly natural gas.
So when you do, as you build buildings tighter and tighter, and if you hit passive house standards, Amory Lovins from Rocky Mountain Institute was one of my professors back in 1982. I kind of hate to say that. I sound like I'm like out of the Bible or something, but he did a house that was essentially what Passive House in Germany, the guy from Passive House Germany came and saw the house and started the Passive House from that. It was so tightly done that Amory used to laugh that if it got cold, he would just throw a ball and let his dog run around and pant a little bit, and that would heat the house. Now, I don't know about that, but there are houses, smaller houses that can be heated with a hair dryer, 100-watt hair dryer, or 1,000-watt. 1,000-watt hair dryer. And, you know, so basically, as you get these houses tighter and tighter, you see the impact of radiant floor becoming almost worthless. So when we started this, we used to do radiant floors all the time. And when it got really cold, the floor would get hot. And you take your shoes off and go, yeah, bring it on. This is great. But as you get these houses tighter and tighter, you don't even feel it. And so I think, honestly, radiant floor is like an expense you do not need to do on a really tight house, like passive house or just a little below passive house, which is what we're going to need to be moving to be able to achieve net zero, is basically passive house. And the other thing about that is when you get a house that well insulated, it goes from being point source heat to just kind of continuous heat. So in other words, like you don't have to locate your supplies by the windows because that's where your heat loss is. Almost doesn't matter. It's like a thermos bottle. The heat will just kind of go where it needs to go. And so this also brings up the thing that I've seen a lot of in Colorado is radiant heated driveways. That typically has a boiler larger than the house boiler. And we used to joke with people like, do you really want a hole in the ozone layer named after you because of this? Like, you do not need to do this. I would rather see you take that money and pay some local guy $50 or $100 to shovel and keep that in the local economy than playing God with the mechanical system. I mean, I know we can argue that one, but that's my opinion, that radiant heat kind of almost doesn't matter. The one place I do like it is in bathrooms, you know, where you are barefoot, you're on a hard surface. Definitely love it there. Can certainly be electric. It can be on a timer, you know, no harm with that.
Nate, it's interesting
Go for it, Jess.
hear you talk about sort of your experience watching these energy approaches change over time in architecture. And I'm interested in, you know, like the snow melt comment you just made. I have clients, we took it out because it got VE'd, but who want snow melt and who want these amenities that, you know, they want their gas burning fire ranges and fireplaces, and all of those things are changing, right? And Denver coming out with the electrification goals is going to push people there, whether they like it or not. But I wonder if you have any sort of wisdom about how these changes happen and how we make people, clients specifically, excited to embrace, you know, induction cooktops.
Oh,
and
that's the best one. I was just going to say, of the 4 things that a house uses that are gas.
Yeah. And
I like to use the word methane. It's not natural gas. We shouldn't let them get away with calling it this semi-organic, groovy sounding. It's terrible. It's methane.
Yeah.
Okay? So, you know, it's the cooktop, it's the dryer, it's the water heater, it's the mechanical system. So the one that makes people, especially women, roll their eyes is the cooktop. Like, no, I need my gas cooktop. And I tell them all the top chefs now are using induction cooking. It is the best cooking. It's the best way to do it. In Chicago, we have a deal with GE Monogram at the Merchandise Mart that we will bring clients in and their executive chef will cook us a dinner or a lunch. Who says you can't get a free lunch? So I've been there like 8 times. And the guy knows exactly what to say. He sits there for 1 hour showing you, he's cooking, he's chopping, he's doing all this stuff. And then he cooks on the induction and you are amazed that it can boil water in like a minute. It can cook and it's so even. And once they see that, it's all over with. So it's really, when they understand that, it's all over with. The heating, I don't think people really care where the heat is coming from as long as it's good or cool. The hot water, same thing. Although the heat pump water heaters are a little odd, you know, they blow cold air around. So we like to locate those next to wine cellars or
smart.
Blow them into a wine cellar. Or if you have like a huge AV thing, which maybe isn't the greenest thing, but people have them, that is producing so much heat. We locate it next to it and we have a vent low and high. And sometimes we put a fan on that vent and we're using that to heat the hot water. They also have some more expensive hot water that has an outdoor condenser, but they're still too expensive right now. So I think the thing of it is, I mean, once you let them know that the cool kids are using induction, it's all over with. And, you know, you want to use 18th century technology for cooking, you know, come on, get with the program.
Using the term
Jump in your electric car, cook with your induction cooktop. Welcome to the Jetsons.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Megan?
I was just going to say, Jessica, using the term methane with your clients and the shortish 5'7" chef here who now anytime I turn on my gas, whatever I have Viking that isn't broken, so I don't want to replace it, but I do. I'm just, yeah, now I'm like ready to not cook anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think the thing is that all of this stuff is good fork in the road stuff. That
Yeah.
like when when it breaks, well, you know what you're going to do, but you think hard about it if you don't already know what you're going to do. The next time you buy a car, are you really going to be looking at a gas powered car with everything going on? I'm on my 4th electric car now. There's no way on earth I'm going back. And I say that because once I get my condo, I don't know, I might get an old Subaru, you know, do the Boulder thing, but ideally I'd get an old BMW i3. That would be my thought. But so you want to be ready either professionally or in your own world with, okay, I need to do this to the house. What's the good thing? What's not the good thing? What's the good and bad about it? What's the price difference? And justify it one way or the other, you know, but really, I think we're shifting really quick to being all electric and super smart on your energy use.
I just want to add to that a little bit because I have a client now who's been the best client. They came in and they said, we really want to do all these things. We have these goals. We care about the environment. We want to be good stewards to our property and to the land. But, you know, so the building is actually beating energy code by 70% or something. We've got great big passive house walls and ERVs running and German windows and the whole thing. But, you know, they have some gas for their stove, which is, you know, I think an argument that could be won on another project. They have indoor gas fireplaces, which I have a hard time convincing people to move away from, and they have a pool. And in Colorado, especially in high-end single-family homes, like and I don't really know what to tell them. They want to use their pool 3 seasons at least. We're doing most of the pool off geothermal,
right?
But that doesn't give them 4th season. So there's some of those things that I think lifestyle changes that we want to be good advocates for, but also anticipate the pushback so that we can, you know.
Yeah, that is a great story because that 4th season, like really do you need that? Like maybe you go to the health club, you know, we've had a discussion where we've had people want to do a underground basketball court. And I go, you know, for the price of that, you could take a limo to the health club for 50 years with, you know, and get drinks served to you. Why are you doing that? What is the point? It has nothing to do with actually playing basketball. It's some weird status thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the thing I would tell you about, well, first of all, the fireplace thing, that's a great point. We do put fireplaces in for resilient design. In case the power goes out, we want to have a totally third type of power source. So not electric, not gas, but we want to be able to have that. And so, and you guys know about this as well as anyone, super efficient outdoor combustion, sealed door that really produces heat. Most fireplaces are air conditioners. They're sucking heat, they're sucking air from every crack they can find. And the dust bunnies are rolling around on the floor. So there's a way to justify the fireplace, and I like that, and that's fine, as long as they understand it. The other thing is when they punt on certain things, let's say they don't do the gas, they don't change the gas cooktop to the induction. We need to get the electric service set for this thing. Okay, so that's the one thing. Go, you know what? We're going to give you a 400 amp service. I don't even want to hear it, but you don't even tell them. Just do it.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned that giving them the option to say no is a bad move in some ways. And if you go to jail over that, well, so be it. But for the forced air systems, if they do go natural gas, I would say have the mechanical engineer design it so that they could swap it out there's different types of the mini splits, and the mini splits some people are familiar with are the little things up on the wall, but there's ones that look like furnaces that are just electric. And so size the ductwork to handle that. At least that way, when the thing goes kaput, which is going to be too late, but at least we're giving them an option. Maybe they'll swap it out. Maybe there'll be some incentive from the government, or the price comes way down, or maybe they hit the jackpot and they can swap that out, that they don't need to redo the ductwork. So we want to take out as many excuses as we can. The water heater is no big deal. The dryer is the easiest thing in the world, as long as you got the electric capacity for it. And then the electric charging is not that hard. My car, I've got a little Tesla, and I mean, I've had it with the level 2 charger, but we sold our house and now we're renting, and they put a regular plug in, and I got a regular plug at work, and I don't even know whose plug that is at work. I don't pay for anything right now. Don't tell me.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things like EV charging and solar prep and these things have already become assumptions, and the rate of that change has been extremely quick. So I think things like
hockey stick now. And so this whole I mean, I think it's fascinating that there's so many cars now this year coming out that are electric, that this has got people thinking very differently, and they're going to think that way for houses too.
Yeah.
It's
definitely happening. It's exciting.
Oh yeah, it's great. That was a great question, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for making the time to do this, Nate. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
step one is admitting I have a problem. It's not a big deal.
So Nate, how is skateboarding good for the environment?
Oh, come on. It's those things you listed. Well, it's very funny. It's very funny that like architects, I'm going to make a huge overgeneralization, but they like electric cars. They like sailboats and not motorboats. They like bikes and not motorcycles. I mean, we're, human power, natural stuff, gravity sports. I can't wait for the Olympics. It's been a long time coming.
Cool. Does anybody else have any questions? I guess not. I think we can probably wrap it up, unless there's anything else you wanted to mention, Nate.
I'm just looking forward to those Green Builder Guild little bubble things. That last one was really fun. So I'll be on that, and I'm going to start getting back out to Boulder a lot more. It's been really a difficult year for me. I'm kind of trapped here, but hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm looking forward to it. But I guess I would just say, everyone's got to like double down on this and really get moving on it.
When you had the slide up, you mentioned an architect out of Oak Park. I'm originally actually from there. Curious, but I didn't catch the name. Who was it that's doing Passive House?
That's my good friend, Tom Bassett-Dilley. He is the Passive House guy in the Chicago, I would say in the Midwest. He is amazing, really good. Take a look at his website, especially if you're from that area. He kind of loves prairie style, so it's kind of fun to see, although he does modern stuff as well, but it's fascinating to see his work.
Well, what's his last name? Bassett-Dilley?
Bassett-Dilley, Dilley.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll end it there. Thanks. Thank you, Nate. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. And I see Dave is on here. Dave and I are working on a project already, and Megan's been so helpful with lots and lots of stuff. So hopefully I'll meet up with everyone.
We're excited to have you back here in Boulder, Nate.
Yeah, well, it feels,
hopefully.
Yeah. It's such a great community, and just love every bit of it.
Nate, what part of Chicago are you in?